Hi, welcome to Every Single Journey, a family life original podcast for singles. My name is Becki. I'm a single girl in my 30s who is passionately pursuing this life God has given me. Join me as we navigate the season of singleness together. Does your single status cause you to feel embarrassed or shameful? Like your relationship status is the one topic you should not talk about, and when it comes up, everything just gets awkward? Here to chat about this are...
Hey, I'm Tately. I am also a single girl in my 30s, and I'm looking forward to coffee after this.
And I'm Bailey. I work for the IT department at Family Life, but I'm also an aspiring trapeze artist.
Whoa.
Ooh, fun. Tately, when have you felt shame or embarrassment just because you're single?
Yeah, other than just in general.
Oh, no.
I think what happens is, and I'm noticing it the older I get, people become more and more curious as to your status and why. And it seems like it would be comforting when people seem surprised that you're still single. Like, wow, you're single at your age? Like, how are you still single? And that sounds like a compliment. But what starts to happen is then my brain goes, well, how am I still single? Like, well, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong about me? Or like when they phrase it with, you're still single at your age? I'm like, oh, is that really bad? And so I think in my day-to-day life, I'm not really bothered by it. But then when those questions come up, then I kind of turn them in on myself. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And so I'd say that's the biggest time. And then for some reason, the other time I really feel like embarrassment over being single is stuff we've touched on in other episodes is like talking about dating apps or talking about wanting to not be single or singles conferences. For some reason, just anytime relationship status comes into the conversation, it's for some reason feels embarrassing. So that's me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, for me, I'm very similar where I don't generally feel that embarrassment, but it does come up in conversations. So leading up to this, I thought of very specific events that happened in my life recently that made me feel that embarrassment. So I could share what some of those were. Mm-hmm. For example, I was at a party and it was so nice because I was catching up with people I haven't seen in a long time. And it was really good getting to know what they were doing in life, and it was fun explaining what was going on in my life. But then a conversation ended with someone saying, well, I'll pray you find someone. And I was like, oh, we didn't mention anything about like my dating life. And I was just confused. So I kind of just brushed it off and was like, oh, thank you. But it did make me feel embarrassed. Like, am I supposed to show that I'm working towards finding someone? And then also at that same party, I was with a group of girls and they were all talking about their boyfriends or boy problems. And then they turned to me and they're like, what about you? And then I'm like, oh, I'm not talking to anyone right now. But in reality, I haven't like dated anyone in a few years. So that embarrassment can kind of come when, you know, you talk about those milestones in life with people. And then another situation was not something people said, but just me overthinking a situation. I went to another gathering and I realized I was one of the only single people there. So I just got in my head and I'm like, well, why is that? Am I not trying hard enough? Is it embarrassing that I don't have someone to bring to me with this party? So I think it comes a lot in those group gatherings when you're comparing yourself to others.
The group gatherings when you're comparing yourself to others, or for me, it's also when it's the general expectation is you are either married or you have a boyfriend or someone that you're talking to. So when the conversation just naturally turns to, oh, what does your husband think about that? Or, oh, are you married? Or like those initial questions when you're just getting to know somebody and they don't know your relationship status, or maybe they do and they're like, oh, when was the last time you went on a date? So it's those like general expectations that is the direction my life is moving. And then when I reveal that I'm single, I'm not talking to anybody right now, or no, I'm not married, and there's that awkward silence and like pause where you can almost read their face, but then I'm feeling it at the same time of like, you don't know how to proceed. Like you don't know how, like, what do you say? What do you do to keep the conversation going when it's a sudden change in what you were expecting? And that makes me feel a little kind of awkward, but like more embarrassed about the fact that like, oh, wait, am I doing something wrong because my life isn't progressing in that natural flow of I'm talking to somebody or I'm going on a date or I have a husband? And it just can be really embarrassing. And then I find myself trying to like explain away why that's not the case, or explain away that I really am okay being single. And it just makes things really embarrassing and awkward. And I'm like, I feel like it shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Or those times where somebody's asking, like you said, Tately, a very well-meaning question, but I interpret it differently. So just like one thing that I don't seem to have much of a problem with is going places by myself. Like I have no problem walking into a party on my own, or walking into a new church on my own, or a new setting and I don't know anybody, or maybe I'm meeting some people there or something. And I've learned that that's not as common of a trait as I thought. And so the very well-meaning question of like, well, how do you do that? Like I wouldn't be able to go alone. I would need a +1. Or I'd drag my boyfriend along or something along those lines. And I'm like, well, first, I don't have a +1 to drag along, but also should I not be so bold as to be okay walking in by myself? And so it's my interpretation of like, oh, something's wrong with me because I'm not embarrassed to do that. But then it turns into this embarrassment of like, oh, well, I'm still single. So now I'm embarrassed about that portion of my life just because it's a well-meaning question that I'm interpreting wrong.
Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of a trap, right? Because if you're getting asked those questions, people sometimes will be like, oh, well, you'll find someone. It'll be okay. And you're like, I know. Or like, maybe I won't. I'm fine. And like for you were like, Bailey, you were saying, I'm sharing how all these good things in my life. And then they summarized it by, I hope you'll find someone. And then it feels like they're saying, oh, but you're just missing this. Oh, you're so close to having it all. Or when you're like, oh, I'm fine going places alone. And they're like, well, how? I wouldn't be able to. And what that feels like they're saying is like, don't you feel lonely? Don't you feel awkward? Don't you feel embarrassed? And then it starts to feel like a judgment. And this simple thing like a relationship status becomes like this flaw. And that's what it feels like. But yet, if you say, I don't really want to be single, it's like, well, you should be content. But then if you say, I'm good being single, people are like, how? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How? And then it's like, well, what do you want from me? What's the right answer here? Yeah. And I think it's just uncommon enough, specifically in Christian circles, that it's just this like lack of understanding. And I think when people are asking those questions, they want what's best for you. They're like, I'm so happy in my marriage. I have never spent a long time as an adult single. I can't imagine what that's like. So I'm just going to assume for you that you need this happiness that I'm experiencing. And so like a lot of times it's not coming from a bad place. It's just coming from misunderstanding. And it's not a society.
Yeah.
And then I think for us, it becomes, how we internalize it or how we play that comparison game, that no matter what stage of life we're in, there's always the temptation to play that comparison game of like, oh, well, I don't have X, Y, and Z. And so now I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And then it can then turn into embarrassment and just how we're internalizing it. And then remembering too, it's like, that is a wonderful and great, well-meaning question that I am being asked. And then for me, I'm like, how can I just briefly share, maybe, someday it would be great to have a future partner. Right now, I don't have that, but here's a few good things in my life. And then ask them a good question about something in their life to kind of keep the dialogue going and then help me move from that place of embarrassment to contentment or joy or just get rid of the embarrassment altogether. But then I also have to remind myself too, it's like my well-meaning question or good question to them could also be causing them embarrassment, even though it's not related to their relationship status. And so it's a weird, tricky balance. And I feel like another place that finding that balance and trying to figure out how to get rid of that embarrassment or that shame for me comes in with like singles conferences or singles gatherings. I don't know about you guys, but like growing up in the youth group and stuff, we went to teen conferences, we went to teen retreats, we went to teen gatherings. And then as I've gotten older, it could transition to young adult groups, young adult gatherings, or for married couples, you hear a lot of like marriage retreats or marriage conferences. And then for some reason, for me, as soon as it's a singles related thing, I'm immediately uncomfortable. And I'm immediately like, well, I would love to go because all of these other conferences that I've been to have been great for me and the Lord has worked in my life. And I would love to like go and partake in that. But I don't want to tell anybody because if I go to the singles conference, what is it going to like, how is it going to label me? And then suddenly I'm like embarrassed to even go to it. So a lot of times it prevents me from going to it or to talk about it. It's like, well, I'll just do it, but I won't tell anybody. I'll just go all by myself and I just won't tell anybody. And then, but there's still that embarrassment there. I don't know if you guys have felt that at all.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot because I've never been to a singles conference, but I was wondering if maybe everyone's assuming what a singles conference is. Because I feel like even I've done this in the past where when I hear a singles conference, I'm like, oh, is that a place for people to find their spouses? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big assumption with people nowadays, that it's just these people trying to do whatever they can to find their spouse, but singles conferences aren't for that. Just like when you think of a marriage conference, it's for a married couple to grow together, to grow spiritually in that specific part of their life. So why can't a singles conference be about people in this specific moment as a singles person growing in their faith with Jesus?
And I mean, the secular world might have conferences that are just speed dating times 5 or something. But it's just everything has this certain label. Like what you were saying, Becki, like, oh no, like, oh, it's going to be embarrassing. I think the shame of singleness isn't even about singleness in of itself. It's that fear of what it says about us. And all of that kind of boils down to that. Like, does this make it seem like I'm behind? Does it make it seem like I'm not worthy? Does it make it seem like I'm desperate? Mm-hmm. Does it make it seem like I'm whatever else? And that's really the fear, is like, what does this say about me? And that's hard because there's not like some immediate solution will come to in 20 minutes. We will bring you 10 steps towards removing said shame. Like, that's just not the case. But like, obviously there's internal work that has to happen. But I think in a sense, there's like societal work and church work that has to happen of just changing that perspective. And it's not just for said singles to be like, let's change the narrative. It's like everyone has to kind of agree that this isn't embarrassing. Mm-hmm. And like, we can't do that, but we can at least change how we see it and how we respond to those things and how we respond to other people who are single, or if someday we're not and we ask them questions or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where I'm even going with that, but
yeah, it's almost like society is taking a worldly view about being single when we make those assumptions and people feel shame, because I feel like sometimes people just think about getting those milestones in life, and marriage is a part of the like worldly milestones, I guess I would say. But that's not really the case when you look in the Bible, because even Paul is saying how good it is to be single and how you can just put your focus on God rather than a marriage. So I think in some ways maybe the church kind of clings on to that worldly view, you know, about just getting those different stages in life when it's not always the case for others.
Mm-hmm. But Paul is such a good example. And then you think about the fact of even Jesus was single. Yeah. And if marriage was needed to have a perfect life, or to fulfill your mission and calling, or to properly obey, then he would have done that. I'm not saying like singleness is better, but I'm saying obviously you don't need marriage to do those things, because he's the ultimate example of a perfect life and he didn't have that piece. So it's obviously not needed for everyone. And that should, like, at the end of the day, that should be enough said.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what it was like for people in Bible times who were single, because I wonder, like, in our culture now, it is, like you've been saying, Bailey, one of those milestones to reach is to get married and to have a family. But I feel like if you look at the culture in Bible times, it was even more prominent than it is now.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, what was it like to be a single person back then? Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of the day, yes, we're all humans. We all face the same similar emotions and struggles as we walk through life and as we pursue what God is calling and asking of us to do and to give in this life. But I'm just like, I wonder if it was harder back then, or if it was really just kind of similar with just a different set of circumstances.
Like, how many times did someone ask Jesus, when are you going to find a nice girl? I'm sure he got it in some way. So
I'm really curious what his response would be.
Yeah. I think, and it's just a reframing of, it's not like, well, why am I single? Or what is wrong with me? It's just, how can I steward this time well? And obviously that's a lot easier to say than do. It's not like, oh, you're right, I'll think of it that way. Never embarrassed again. But that's why everything in life is just a daily refocus of, or even in the moment of feeling like, well, there must be something wrong with me. And like, nope, that's the devil using my relationship status to make me feel shame. And I'm instead going to tell myself truth and tell myself that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I am complete. I'm already loved, chosen, and redeemed. I don't need an earthly person to do that for me to make those things true. And my worth isn't tied to that. So in those moments, maybe I just need to kind of tell myself those truths, and I can't make other people believe them, but I can believe them, and I can choose to believe them each moment. And that's not to say it's not hard. And that's not to say, oh, if you ever feel sad about being single, that's wrong. Like, I think one of my favorite jokes is just going, two things can be true. But this is that moment. Like, you can desire marriage and still be faithfully stewarding the season you're in. Like, both of those things can coexist. You just have to do it carefully.
Mm-hmm.
I like the point you bring up, Tately, of finding the balance, because I think one of the things we could do here is flip completely to the opposite side. And instead of being embarrassed or it being shameful or feeling that way because we're single, we could flip to the other side and kind of stand on it like a pedestal or a rock and be like, I am single and everything's fine and it's great. And just kind of be maybe a little bit too loud and boisterous in that way. So I think finding the balance is a good perspective to have of like, yeah, it can be hard and yeah, it can be embarrassing at times, but so can anything else in life. And just reminding ourselves of the truths that we find in Scripture. And then I feel like we have an opportunity here to be the light in front of everybody in a sense, because like we've mentioned several different times, we don't have that 10-step plan for how to not feel shame anymore or not feel embarrassed anymore because of our single status or how to fix it. But we do have the opportunity to talk about it and to help just lead by example to those around us and to our different churches or our different social groups. And maybe it's taking that step and being that first person not only to go to a singles conference, but maybe invite my single friends to come with me. Like, I don't have to go by myself, or put an announcement in the bulletin at church or however your church does announcements of there's this great singles conference coming up. Let's get the word out. And I'm challenging myself here to be that voice because I feel like if the three of us in this room talking about it are feeling it, there's probably more people than just us feeling it. And why not take that step and help encourage other people? Hey, you don't have to stay in that feeling of embarrassment. We can find joy and happiness and contentment in Christ together. And let's do it with a bunch of our other single friends, or let's do it at our church and make everybody else aware of just kind of the awkwardness that it can create, and maybe be those lights to those around us. And we're going to start a movement, guys.
Revolution.
That's reminding me of how I got out of one of those situations of embarrassment, the one where I'm overthinking and feeling that shame. I just got back and I'm like, I had these negative thoughts that can come with the shame, but I was like, no, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I have so many like friends around me supporting me. So I remember that whole week, I just had so much fun with friends, and I hosted things, and I just really tried to build community because I realized my worth isn't based on, if I have a husband or not. My worth is based on just building this community and just being able to share your thoughts with others.
You're so right. Our worth isn't in our relationship status. Our worth is in who Christ says we are in Scripture, because that's who He's made us to be. And when we fully rely on Him and fully grasp onto and choose to stand on the truths of who He says we are, we then can build that community around us and pour into people. And then I find they in turn pour back into me. All of the things that community is meant to be, and how Christ wants us to live and love each other. And then everything works itself out. It's not like the relationship status is what we have to get to then have a full life. We can have a full life, single or married. And just choosing, even though it's hard sometimes, recognizing the hard, but choosing to stand on who Christ says we are can make all the difference in the world.
We keep talking about community, and sometimes that's hard to find. I think about before I moved here, there was a church that I was in, and I was like literally the only single adult. And even like people in youth group were like coming out of youth group and getting married. And so that made me an outlier. And society is uncomfortable around outliers. And so that's where some of the shame was feeling, is I could feel they were like, where do we put her? Like, what do we do with her? If we put her here, she'll be with all like the young married people. If we put her here, and I could feel that. And I could feel that feeling of like, well, we can't put her in like these ministries because she's single, which is silly. And when I tried to kind of form this group, and we'd do things like Friendsgiving, and I'd go, and it was like, here's 8 couples and you, and then it's like, oh, let's get a group photo. Tately can take it. She, like she doesn't have to be in the photo. There's no one with her, and that was a really hard season because it wasn't like anyone's fault. I could tell they were trying, but they didn't know what to do, and so I think there's like I was frustrated, but looking back, I'm able to have like more grace with them. Just not this was an unknown. Mm-hmm. I was just this outlier unknown factor that they're like, what is this? What do we do with this? And so it's having grace with those. It's having grace with yourself. And then I came here and I was like, wow, I'm surrounded by like single adults that are actually like where I'm at in life and can like relate to me, and we can hang out. And I hang out with my married friends as well. I'm not saying like you can't hang out with someone and be a third wheel, but they didn't make me feel like a third wheel, or a fifth or a seventh wheel. And I saw this whole new way of doing community. And now that group is starting to get married and pair off. But because of that like relationship we've established, I'm not as afraid of it. But all that to say, going back to where I was, that's another thing where I feel like if someone's like, oh, just find community, that can like feel frustrating, because it's like, but how do I feel community? And that amplifies sometimes the singleness, because now you're lonely in 2 ways, mm-hmm. and you don't know what to do. And again, I don't have a magic answer. It might be drastic. For me, it was literally changing communities. And actively pursuing it might be like you said, Bailey, like, okay, I'm going to host. I'm going to be the person that does that. Or it might be like you, Becki, being like, I'm going to be okay doing it myself. I don't know, but I guess I don't want to just blindly say, find community, and not acknowledge that that's hard too. It's not some easy thing, but I've seen God be so faithful through the times of feeling like I don't have a significant other or friends. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, just relying on him.
Yeah, I like how you brought that up, because when I think about my life and I heard build community, I definitely would have been like, yes. How do I do that? Because I'm realizing it's been a long journey of me, because I have a twin and we're very close and we did everything together. I think once we went our separate ways, that sounds bad, separate locations, it's kind of like, oh, I'm used to being with her all the time, so now what do I do? And at first it was hard just putting myself out there, but I think it's just been a long journey of just having courage and mm-hmm. being the one to host things, and just being able to just convey that to people, that you're looking for friendship and things like that. It wasn't easy for me, but I'm finally getting to a point where you just have to take that leap of faith and have courage in building your community.
And I think the piece that has tied it all together for all 3 of us, as we've each walked through that different time in our life when we didn't have community and we didn't have a significant other, we just felt alone in our singleness and we didn't even know how to reach out. I think the thing that tied it all together for each of us has been prayer and that step of faith. Mm-hmm. because I know that during my journey through that, and having heard some of your guys' journey through that, I know that you guys were also in prayer during that time. And it's that difficult time, but that sweet time with the Lord too, of just praying and laying everything before him, and then taking that step of faith of what you feel he's asking you to do so that he can help fill that need in your life, whether it's inviting people over and being the host, or flat out just telling people, hey, look, I'm looking for community. I'm looking for friends. I'd love to get to know you. Or relocating, like whatever that step looked like, it was first bathed in prayer and then acting in faith on the Lord. And I feel like that is not an easy answer, because it takes time and it takes work, and it just doesn't feel like I necessarily feel like I'm doing anything, because I'm talking to the Lord rather than doing a physical action a lot of the time. But I feel like that would be like the biggest thing for me, is to remember I don't have a 3-step solution and it'll all be solved, but I do have prayer. And that is like the most powerful and meaningful thing that helps me through this single journey and helps me through life in general. It's just, Lord, here it is. Here's how I'm feeling embarrassed, or how I'm feeling awkward, or how I'm feeling fill in the blank. And what do I do? And then relying on him and having the courage to take that step when he gives it to us. Thanks for listening to episode 21 of Every Single Journey. If you've liked what you've heard, click the subscribe button to be notified when future episodes are available. You can also share this podcast on your social media pages so others can be encouraged too. If you're looking for more faith-based content like this, be sure to check out Family Life's other original podcasts, including If That Makes Sense, 10 Minutes With, You Can't Say That on Christian Radio, Therese Talk, and the Parable Podcast. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Your financial gifts make podcasts like this possible as we seek to share the hope we have in Jesus. You can find out more on our website at familylife.org.